Alright, so we are going to be looking at the answers to the December 13th AMA stream from Behavior. I asked I asked 5 questions, and they answered 2 of them, so we'll go through these quick. This is one of the questions I asked. Will we see a Hooked on You Part 2, maybe called Hooked on You 2? Also, blue and white bikini Hooked on You Hunter skin win. 80 upvotes. And Behavior says, hey there, thanks for your interest in another Hooked on You title and for the great title idea. Wink. We have no news to share at this time, but we always love seeing interest coming from our dear community, Dave. And then the reply, someone's asking the real questions here. And you know what's actually funny is they didn't address this part. 1, because it's probably not going to happen. 2, because they said only 1 question per comment. But the blue and white bikini that the Huntress wears in Hooked on You probably has more coverage than the default Spirit skin, I'm not going to lie. So it's not like it would be out of the realm of possibility, but they would probably keep her chest nerfed like they did in the original Hooked on You skin for her, which I don't know why they did that, to be honest. Like, why did they remove her chest? Maybe it has something to do with, like, shareholders or something like that. Here's the second question I asked. Does the upcoming tweak for Huntress slated for April have anything to do with how she's the most map-dependent killer? We have 7 indoor maps now, which make her power much more difficult. Then Behavior said this tweak will unfortunately not affect her map dependency directly, so it will indirectly somehow. That's a complex challenge to solve and will need a larger update. So from the way that sounds, they might have something planned for it. I assume they're not even working on it, but they're at least thinking about it, maybe talking about it. For April, we are focused more on making her more enjoyable to play across the board. We do hear your concern, though, and are constantly trying to update our maps to accommodate all killers and playstyles better. Now, this is really interesting. We are focused on making her more enjoyable to play across the board. I would assume maybe it's, like people were saying, a base kit Oak Haft, maybe just like a base kit Flower Babushka, where her wind-up time is less. Some interesting things like that. So we're not going to be seeing any increase to her hatchet holding speed or her movement speed or anything like that, because it says that's a complex challenge to solve and will need a larger update for April. So it sounds like they're planning something. Who knows? Who knows? Same rotation of maps can get boring fast. Do you plan on adding any more realms for characters who don't have any realms personally, especially Trickster? Of course, they have this answer. They responded to something similar. There's only so much they can do in a year. Limited time, limited resources. That said, realms are built in with procedural generation and reuse in mind, so it's very possible to re-explore these realms with new locations in the future. This is not a promise. So they're saying they could add new maps to the same realms, you know what I mean? Like putting Trickster's realm in the Devarka Deepwood or something like that. Now that we have bots taking over for human players after they disconnect, can we get a reconnect feature for human players? That's what DBD Mobile has. Behavior says it's not in our roadmap right now to do this at the moment, but it's a topic we can bring up and discuss the feasibility on. No promises. I think it would be cool to have a reconnect feature, because there's been a couple times where I just dropped out and I could easily have hopped right back in. So, of course, the Sadako rework, when it first hit the live servers, a lot of Onryo mains were vocally upset about the huge changes to her powers. Is the upcoming Sadako rework aiming to make her more similar to the original version of the character? Behavior says, we have definitely heard the cries and anguish from the Onryo fans. Our initial intention was to make Condemned more relevant, but we've reassessed, and yes, we are hoping to restore some of what the players loved about her old kit while still enhancing it in some important ways. So, it looks like they're going to try and mix the old and new kit back together, which I think is good. Of course, they're asking about match replay. Behavior says this is something we'd love to have ourselves. However, this would represent an important technological challenge to do, and so it's not something that's planned for now. And it'll honestly probably never happen from just the way the game was made, you know. It was made by an indie studio, very low, you know, just quality at the time, because they just really didn't have the resources and the money, so the coding of the game's kind of jacked. They called it spaghetti code in the past, so we'll probably never have that feature, to be honest. One of the biggest parts of this game is the music. So many killers get a ton of personality and horror added to them by music. Some killers, such as Bubba, Plague, Pig, have the generic entity music. Is there any plan on giving them either new music or keep the base music and add an extra layer on top? DBD's an evolutive game, says Behavior, ever-changing and getting updates here and there. All of our monsters are equal in our hearts and deserve the same attention. If your favorite killer doesn't have a feature yet, it may come soon in the future. I think the original killers more so than the licensed killers for sure. Like, I could definitely see Plague and Huntress getting new chase music and stuff like that. I think that would be cool, to be honest. Are we able to receive any hints on what the solution for 3 gens might be like? Behavior says, PTB goes out in January. In all seriousness, what I can say is we've tried very hard to solve the problem without interfering with normal games. One more hint, we think you'll get a kick out of it. So it's probably going to be a little bit goofy. I'm thinking if you kick the same 3 gens in the first minute of the game, or like, you know, first 2 minutes of the game, and you kick the same 3 gens like 2 or 3 times, maybe it'll slow your movement speed by 10% or something like that. Or maybe if you keep kicking the same gens, it'll like blast you, you know, with like built-in blast mines. Who knows? Will we see statistics for kill rates, escape rates divided by killer, swift, solo, duo, and MMR for the past year? We all love the data, says Behavior. Statistics are something the community team wants to regularly communicate about with the community. We started over the past few months with perk usage, and yes, we're looking to do more over the course of the next few months. So, nothing solid, but they said they want to. Something tells me that they haven't released any stats because Made for This kind of threw a whole wrench into the stats and skewed everything. So, who knows if they're going to do that. Would you consider additional rewards on daily rituals? We hope to rework the entire daily ritual system, and that would involve improved presentation and reward visualization, which I think is nice. It definitely does need a rework for sure. Boon, Scourge, and Teamwork perks were all added as a unique type of perk, but then abruptly stopped seeing new additions shortly after. Do you have any plans to revitalize these to be recurring and common as Hex and Exhaust perks? Behavior says, I agree that our perk types are pretty interesting and should see some new action, but I can't promise anything. We always try to match the theme of the attached characters' IPs, and we also try to support underused strategies and or counter overused strategies when possible. Sometimes these elements take us to specific designs that don't always line up with specific types, so who knows. For the Twins rework, what does adjust the slugging meta mean? Behavior says, first off definition, slugging equals downing survivors without picking them up and hooking them, leaving them on the ground and rushing off to down more survivors. We've noticed that for many players, the optimal way to play with the current Twins kit is to slug survivors heavily with Victor. This isn't a very fun playstyle for survivors as you end up spending a lot of time on the ground not able to do anything, so the Twins update will change the kit to encourage other playstyles more. So I have no idea how this could work. They're going to prevent slugging, I guess, so maybe when you get it down with Victor, he has like, it auto switches to Charlotte and she gets like a 10% haste or like a 15% haste for 10 seconds to get to the survivor that's been downed. For the FOV slider, Shadowborn's extra FOV makes the angle of flashlight blinds easier for survivors. Will that be fixed with the FOV slider update? Behavior says, for right now, this is not going to change. It is something we will continue to monitor with the use of the FOV slider. Initially, the FOV slider will go into the beta tab to allow for us to fully test the feature on the live build mic. As a Shadowborn user, because I'm a Huntress main, it does suck that, because sometimes I'll pick up a survivor and survivors will hit flashlight angles that aren't even close. Like, they'll literally be shining a flashlight at the back of my head and they'll get the save. And it's like, price I pay for hitting more hatchets with Shadowborn. So, you know, it is what it is. They said they're going to monitor it. They'll probably leave it, but oh well. It's better than nothing. Here's the second question I asked. Does the upcoming tweak for Huntress slated for April have anything to do with how she's the most map-dependent killer? We have 7 indoor maps now, which make her power much more difficult. Then Behavior said this tweak will unfortunately not affect her map dependency directly, so it will indirectly somehow. That's a complex challenge to solve and will need a larger update. So from the way that sounds, they might have something planned for it. I assume they're not even working on it, but they're at least thinking about it, maybe talking about it. For April, we are focused more on making her more enjoyable to play across the board. We do hear your concern though, and are constantly trying to update our maps to accommodate all killers and playstyles better. Now this is really interesting. We are focused on making her more enjoyable to play across the board. I would assume maybe it's like people were saying a base kit Oak Haft, maybe just like a base kit Flower Babushka, where her wind up time is less. Some interesting things like that. So we're not going to be seeing any increase to her hatchet holding speed or her movement speed or anything like that, because it says that's a complex challenge to solve and will need a larger update for April. So it sounds like they're planning something. Who knows? Oh yeah, Is the FOV slider just for killers, or are the survivors getting an FOV slider too? Like, isn't that just the most outrageous thing on the planet? Killers have an 87-degree FOV. Survivors right now probably have like 350, to be honest, for their FOV. Something like that. Maybe 250. Like, get out of here. What does a survivor need an FOV slider for? That's not fair at all. You already have third person. You already have third person. The FOV slider is designed to affect first person only. Survivors and Chucky are in third person, so the FOV slider will not increase their FOV. Could we get specifics on the changes to save the best for last? It's one of those perks that I don't feel like needs a lot of adjusting, as it really only helps M1 killers as opposed to high tier killers like Nurse or Blight. Ooh, I wish I could spill the beans all over the place, but I'm strictly forbidden. What I can say is that we've been pretty cautious with this perk, and the changes are not dramatic. Very cautious, so the changes aren't dramatic. I'm assuming it's going to be 3 tokens lost per hit of the obsession. They were still answering questions, which is interesting. All right, that does it for this one. That's all the questions. I'm glad that they answered my questions. A couple of the other questions I asked were if we could get a new ultra rare for each killer to kind of like significantly change the way that they play, so that way, you know, it could fundamentally change the way the killer plays in a way that it would be more interesting for the survivors. So, for instance, Huntress gets a hatchet head called the Iron Head, which pops generators for 5% when you hit them. Obviously, you can only hit a generator once. Unless it gets touched, then you can hit it again, and then fully charged hatchets break pallets that have been dropped and breakable walls. I think that could be such a change up. And once a survivor sees that a pallet gets broken cross map by a hatchet, they're going to play the game entirely differently and stuff like that. And the 5% pop on gens could stop, you know, like people just busting it out for a drain, something like that. Also, another question I had was if they planned on reworking any of the ultra rares for any of the killer, but the example I gave is still just Petit for Huntress. Doesn't feel like an ultra rare. It seems like it should be base kit, but that one never got answered, unfortunately. So that does it for this one. That was the Reddit Dead by Daylight AMA. I'm glad that they answered 2 of my questions. Unfortunately, you know, the answers were pretty vague. As you know, expected. They want everything to be kind of secret, kind of low-key, kind of hush-hush. So nothing really expected there. I'm glad they gave us some clarification on the Huntress changes. They said to make her more fun across the board, so I'm assuming they're not going to nerf her. Probably like a base kit OCAF, maybe a base kit shiny pin, something like that. But who knows. And unfortunately, no news on a Hooked on You 2. I mean, that would be great. That would be awesome. I would love a Hooked on You Part 2. I honestly love that game so much. And I would really love to see a Part 2, but I guess we'll see. No news on that yet. So that does it for this one. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe to that good stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one.